In college football, we tend to talk about the favorites. We tend to talk about the teams that everybody knows. But today we're going to take a look at some sleeper teams in college football. We'll take a look at one of each conference and talk about why they are a sleeper in the only regard. We'll start with the AAC. It has to be UTSA. Now, UTSA is a team that at one point was competing for Conference USA championships consistently. They make the transition to the AAC, and this year feels like a year where they could sneak up on people. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this team in terms of their ability to win the conference. Everyone obviously is looking at Memphis and Tulane to be those two teams that are at the top. But when you look at Jeff Traylor's squad, it's kind of easy to see why this could be a team that sneaks up on people. This offense has the potential to be electric. Owen McCown had a really good year last year, 3,400 yards, 25 touchdowns. He also ran for 340 yards and 3 more scores. Now, the running back position will look a little bit different. Robert Henry takes over as the go-to guy last year, and now it's his job. There, you see two transfers go out, and it's going to be his job. The rushing attack is probably where you have some concerns or maybe some questions because of the lack of depth, but the passing attack appears to be in good hands, assuming that everyone's healthy. Now, when you look at the guys that they have coming back, Willie McCoy, Devin McEwen, David Amador, and tight end Houston Thomas are all going to make for really easy targets for Owen McCown, and that's really good depth by themselves. Now, McEwen and Amador also had injury concerns that kept them out. There are times where they're just not healthy. So that's going to be the biggest thing holding them back. The one nice thing and something that's kind of flying under the radar, DeCorian Clark is coming back. He is back for another year. In the last 2 years, he's only caught one pass because he's been injured. That is a guy who is a proven commodity that can make big plays when it's all said and done. This is a guy who had over 1,400 yards in the 2021 and 2022 seasons combined. He is a big-time playmaker who can be a difference maker for this team. And if you throw him in to this lineup, you're in good hands. The defense probably is where you have the most questions, the most concerns. It's where you probably feel the most uncertain about this team and what they're able to do. I think that it'll still be a really interesting team nonetheless. It's a sleeper team for a reason, so it's not going to be a perfect team by any means, but the schedule also kind of leads them to some potential momentum early on. The Arkansas game will be a tough one, obviously, but this is a team that they do have to play USF, Tulane, and Navy, but those games are all at home. Their road games are manageable and definitely all winnable. I think that's a road lineup that you could go undefeated if you're UTSA. So that's a team that has a lot of potential in 2025. When we go to the ACC, I'm going with SMU. There's probably another team that you could put on here, a couple other teams that you maybe sit there and think, oh, well, what about this team? And I don't really have arguments against that, but given how people are treating SMU after a college football playoff appearance, they're right back to being a sleeper. And I think that's just wrong. I just don't think that that's where this team should be. And people are already selling their stock in Kevin Jennings. Now, I will admit that it was not a great performance by him in the college football playoff. Playing against Penn State on the road is a tough way to step into the college football playoff. But people are already counting them out for this year. They've already moved on to the Clemsons, obviously, to the Miamis. You're also looking at a lot of love for Louisville to have a good year. People think that Florida State's going to bounce back. Georgia Tech, there are probably a number of teams that people are putting over SMU. And I think in terms of not necessarily an ACC top of the conference contender, but a college football playoff return, people are sleeping on SMU. And obviously, like I said, you saw what happened last year. And the schedule also provides some challenges, but that's what makes them a sleeper. People are going to assume that they'll struggle. The second week against Baylor is obviously a tough one. You go to TCU. The home games, you do get Miami and Louisville at home, but you do have to travel to Clemson. So overall, it's a tougher schedule, but it's still a schedule that I think SMU can prove themselves. I'm not going to say that they're going to win a lot of those games or beat the teams like Clemson or even Miami, Baylor, TCU. Those are going to be tough ones. But this is a team that, for whatever reason, people are just honestly moving on. They think that last year was a one-hit wonder, if you will. And now they're trying to prove their worth once again. But this is a lineup that has plenty of talent. Rhett Lashley is a great coach. He's brought in a ton of talent. He's recruited the transfer portal really well. And I think that they're going to be a really fun team. Sticking in the same state for the Big 12, the Houston Cougars, to me, are going to be a surprise team. A really easy schedule compared to a lot of other teams is what makes this a really fun team. You have the opportunity to start the year 4-0 before you face a team in Texas Tech that wants to be a Big 12 champion this year and make it to the college football playoff. You also have a road trip to Arizona State, which is difficult, but you have games that are winnable. And again, this is a sleeper team where you think they're going to improve, but I think that they can surprise a lot of people. There aren't a ton of games that I anticipate them losing for sure. Now, the Texas Tech game feels like Texas Tech is in a much different place than Houston. Same with Arizona State. You can make an argument that Baylor is going to be better as well. You could also make that argument for TCU. I think TCU has plenty of things to sort themselves out. And Houston, obviously, we saw what happened when they played TCU last year. So this is a team that, if you go to watch the deep dive that I did for them, I'll talk about the schedule and what we should expect from this team. But this is a team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. If Connor Wegman truly can find that this is his new home and that he settles in pretty well, then you're looking at a guy who is ready to prove himself at his next school. And you have plenty of transfer portal talent coming in. Amari Thomas comes in at wide receiver. Tanner Quozio comes in at tight end. Harvey Broussard at wide receiver. Former transfers Brandon Mack and Carlos Allen are returning. Jesus Machado is coming in from Tulane at linebacker. So you have new faces coming in. But ultimately, Willie Fritz's team believes that they can win more football games in 2025. A team that always gets overlooked, and honestly, you could put them as a sleeper team every single year, and you would not be wrong. In the Big Ten is the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Minnesota is a team that's consistently slept on. It does not matter how much success they have in the year before. They are going to be doubted. They're going to be slept on. And I can see the argument this year, especially with the quarterback position being uncertain. Drake Lindsey is looking to prove his worth as a young quarterback, and Minnesota is hoping that he's the real deal. But until further notice, I think people are, for the most part, right in sleeping on that position. I think people are sleeping on Darius Taylor. I think that they are overlooking what could be one of the better 1-2 punches in college football. Darius Taylor and AJ Turner are going to be fun. They also have really good depth behind them. So the rushing attack should be fine. Now, Drake Lindsey is new, but he does have plenty of talent to throw to downfield. Lemeki Brockington is coming back. Javon Tracy is someone they're really excited about. Logan Loya. You have plenty of options for Drake Lindsey to find downfield. It's just going to come down to chemistry and how quickly Lindsey can process certain things. The defense, I think, is going to be the fun part of this team. Anthony Smith and Devin Eastern are just two guys to watch on the defensive line. Maverick Baranowski is another underrated player on this team at linebacker. Everybody obviously knows Coy Parrish, but you're kind of forgetting about some of the other guys that are surrounding him. Even guys like Kerry Brown, who had a good year in 2024. This is a team that could be really fun, and the schedule is fairly kind to them, minus a couple games. You know, the road trips are tough. You have to go to the West Coast to play Cal, and then later in the season, you go to Oregon. You have to play Ohio State on the road, Iowa, and Northwestern as well. So those aren't great, but the home schedule is relatively manageable. Buffalo, Northwestern State, Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. Minnesota can win all of those games. And when you look at what that means at worst, if you win all of your home games, you'll be 7-5. You will be in a great position, and the fan base will feel really good about where you're at. And again, this is where I don't think that doubting Minnesota is the smartest decision ever, but people continue to do it. And I get why they do it, but that's what makes them the perfect sleeper team year in and year out in the Big Ten. A new face that will come into Conference USA and I think could have a really fun year is Missouri State. Now, this is a conference that brings in two new teams. One is Missouri State, the other one's Delaware. Everyone honestly is kind of chasing Liberty. Everyone is trying to show that they are capable of competing with the best of the best in this conference. And while Liberty did take a little bit of a step back last year, this is still the team to beat. Missouri State comes in as the newcomer. Nobody really knows what to expect. They go 8-4 last year at the FCS level. Now they come up to the FBS level. I think that they'll be really fun. I think they'll give teams quite a bit of run and then give them some challenges this year. Jacob Clark, I think, is a big name that a lot of people don't necessarily know. And he is someone that could have a big year in this offense. I think that he is set to have a fun season, even though he has some new faces that he must get acclimated to. Jamari Robinson is going to be a familiar face. James Blackstrain is a familiar face, but he's taken on a bigger role. Dash Luke is taking on a bigger role, but you have explosive playmakers. The defense obviously is the group that has to get better, but I don't think that this is a group, once you get past the first three games, that is. Even the Marshall game, we'll see what happens there, but at USC and SMU around that is where you're feeling that you're going to have a little bit of a tougher time winning football games. After that, though, it's Conference USA. Conference USA games are winnable. When you look at Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, FIU, UTEP, Kennesaw State, Louisiana Tech, those are some of the worst teams in this conference last year. So those are potential winnable games for a team that a lot of people don't know yet, but could have a really exciting impact on this conference in 2025. Another team that is a constant underdog, a constant dark horse sleeper team is Eastern Michigan. Chris Creighton deserves so much more credit than he gets for the work he's done at Eastern Michigan. This is a program that was abysmal before he got there, and he has made them a respectable team. I don't think they're going to be competing for a MAC championship year in and year out, but they are a team that deserves a lot more love. They'll have a new quarterback coming in with Noah Kim coming from the transfer portal via Coastal Carolina. You have a rushing attack that has potential. Joey Mattard and James Jointer Jr. comes in from Liberty. Terry Lockett Jr. is probably the best kept secret in the MAC, a second team all MAC selection last year. He is someone that could have a really big season if the quarterback position can sort itself off and be a little bit more consistent. The defense brings in multiple transfers, but again, this really comes down to teams or fan bases and teams sleeping on Eastern Michigan. The Eagles have done a really good job of overachieving under Chris Creighton, and I think that the 2025 season is going to be more of the same. Same thing every single year, it feels like, but you're looking at a team that is used to that, and they know exactly where they feel comfortable and where they need to be. Hawaii is the team in the Mountain West. Hawaii, I think, deserves a lot of recognition for the improvements they made under Timmy Chang, but they are not done yet. And I think that they are going to be a fun team to watch this year. A lot of that hinges on Micah Elahado's production. We saw some glimpses of his talent, 585 yards and 6 touchdowns in his limited position last year as a backup quarterback. This is a team that has the opportunity to make some serious noise early on. 4 of their first 5 games are at home. They host Stanford right off the back in week 0. Then they go to Arizona. Now, I'm not saying Hawaii is going to win those games, but Stanford is not in a good place right now. Arizona is a team that's down. They lose their star receiver. They lose quite a bit of talent at the transfer portal. Again, I'm not saying those are going to be wins, but look at those games for momentum builders for Hawaii. After that, you go Sam Houston, Portland State, a Fresno State team that has a new coach, an Air Force team that is looking to bounce back, and then you get a bye week. What their record is at that point determines how excited you should be for the final stretch. Utah State will be better. Colorado State's tough. San Jose State will compete for a Mountain West championship. San Diego State should be better. UNLV is going to compete for a title as well, and Wyoming should be improved. However, if Hawaii starts strong, I feel pretty good about their chances to win those football games. I'm not going to say that they're going to win all, but that's a team that at this point in the season, if they get halfway through and they are playing with their hair on fire, you're looking at a team that is going to be dangerous in the Mountain West. And a lot of people don't really expect that from them this year. I included the Pac-12. After this year, it's going to be a little bit easier. There's only 2 teams right now, Oregon State, Washington State. You probably could put both teams in this position as a quote unquote sleeper team, but I think people sleep on Oregon State more so than Washington State. Washington State's got a new coaching staff. Oregon State's in year 2 under Trent Bray. They bring in Malik Murphy. I don't think a lot of people are talking about Anthony Hankerson as a legitimate running back. He kind of gets overlooked, over 1,000 yards last year and 15 touchdowns, and I don't think anybody's really talking about that. You also get a weird schedule where you're playing Washington State twice, which I don't like in the regular season, but it is what it is. We're almost done with that. The schedule overall is definitely challenging, and I think that there are some legitimate concerns about this team, but overall, I feel like this is a team that could surprise some people. Maybe not necessarily winning 8, 9, 10 games, but I think that they could be a team that sneaks up on people and pulls out a couple wins that maybe a lot of people aren't expecting. A lot of people are down on this team, and that's what makes them a really good sleeper team, is their position that people are putting them in. Arkansas is not going to win the SEC. Let's just get that started right off the bat. But this is a team that has the talent to stun a lot of people. I think that Taylor Green is a really good quarterback that not a lot of people are talking about, probably because of how loaded the conference is. And it's a loaded conference. Now, Arkansas is not on the level of a Texas or a Georgia. You're just not going to see them at that level. But this is a team that could win football games. This is a team that could surprise a lot of people. Bobby Petrino is running the offense once again. I think that means good things for Taylor Green as long as the skill positions help him out. Mike Washington Jr., Braylon Russell lead what's going to be a really deep running back group. The wide receivers bring in plenty of transfer portal talent, but you need to figure out who's going to be the guys that step up. The defense has some really good pillars. Cameron Ball, one of them. The linebackers and Steven Dix Jr. and Xavier Sori are others. Julian Neal comes in from Fresno State / Stanford. He is a good cornerback in what should be a really exciting defensive backfield. And the schedule kind of does them some favors. You start off the bat with what should be a 2-0 start, Alabama A&M and Arkansas State. You could be 4-0 heading into the Notre Dame game. Oh, by the way, you're hosting Notre Dame. It's not at Notre Dame. So you're feeling pretty good. If you find a way to beat Ole Miss, that's the big one. And Ole Miss is going through plenty of transition themselves. They bring in lots of transfer portal talent. But that means that it's early in the season. They need time to get acclimated. And if Arkansas can prove that they're on a faster track at that point, that's a winnable game, even though it's on the road. Same thing with the Memphis game. But a 4-0 start to host Notre Dame would make this really exciting and give fans a little bit different feeling than they did last year. But again, if this offense is what we expect it to be, if the transfer portal talent steps up, if the defensive line finds its depth and finds its stars besides Cameron Ball, this is a very fun team that could have a special year. Sticking in the same state for the final conference, the Sun Belt. Arkansas State is full of talent. It just comes down to where is their depth going to step up. They do play Arkansas, like we mentioned before. That's a tough way to start your season in week 2. You should be 1-1, 1-2 really, when you play Iowa State. Iowa State's coming to Arkansas. Arkansas State. That's one of the more interesting and unique matchups that I don't think a lot of people realize. Not a lot of people are talking about that yet, and that could be a really fun game as well. The schedule is going to be a tough one. It's the Sun Belt. It's going to be tough, but if you're going to step up and win more games, it's because you have players like Jalen Raynor coming back. If he takes a step in his development, if he finds ways to improve his touchdown to interception ratio, you're feeling pretty good about what this team could do in 2025. You also bring back Jaquez Cross. Corey Rucker is one of the best wide receivers in college football. Brian Whitehead's an underrated defensive end. You bring a ton of talent in from the transfer portal. So you're looking at a bunch of guys that could step up and have a major impact. You're also looking at a schedule that overall isn't terrible. So this is a team that could make a run, Butch Jones is looking to have a surprise season under his belt, and they have the pieces to do it. You're just going to have to surprise some of the teams that you're probably below right now. I think a lot of people think they're below Texas State. Georgia Southern Miss is looking to be a better team. Louisiana and App State. Those are teams that, honestly, when you look at this, the more you look at it, the more wins you probably can find if you're an Arkansas State fan. And that's the beauty of some of these sleeper teams, is that maybe it's delusion. I think that delusion is not having the ability, though, to actually win those games. Arkansas State can win 10 of the 12 games that they play. They're capable of winning those games. I'm not saying they will, but they are capable of doing that. And that's what makes them a good sleeper team. That's what makes all these teams really a good sleeper team, is that they're capable of winning a lot of the games that I think a lot of people don't think that they're capable of winning. You have to have some things go right, obviously. I'm not saying this is a guarantee, but that's what a sleeper is. You're not saying it's a guarantee, but if everything goes right, these are the storylines that we'll be talking about. These are the teams that we'll be talking about at the end of the 2025 season as, did you see what happened to Arkansas? Did you see what happened to Minnesota? Those are the games and the teams that we'll be excited about. And that's my list for 2025. Let me know who yours are. Let me know who you think is going to surprise a lot of people this year.